Are you sure about that? Maybe after an ever. Can anybody beat that? Bandito burrito. That's a good thing. Model ramen. That is a great thing.
Vegan cuisine. Yes.
Oh, Heidelberg.
Good choice. Fat Sammy's.
Fat Sammy's is a good one.
Jim and Nick's.
One more time. The Buck. I'll give you a little bit about myself, about this one. The Voodoo Lounge at 2 a.m. You see some weird shit. All right, I feel like our crowd's starting. I feel like it's time to start. All right, so, man, I'm lucky because, like, growing up, Next Generation was my favorite show. It has been. I'm going to turn 40 this year, and I feel like every year I've had on this earth where I was cognizant enough, I love that show. I've watched it over probably like a dozen times. I'm so lucky that I get to hang out with the actors. Our guest tonight, you know him from a lot of things such as, I'm really going into old catalog here, Jonathan. The Waltons, Dukes of Hazzard, Lois and Clark. Hey, that's a familiar show. Somebody else is here. Leverage, Criminal Minds, and Roswell. But I think you got to give him props because he's the director of a lot of things like Clock Stoppers, Thunderbirds, The Librarian, and then TV shows like Roswell, Twilight Zone, Dollhouse. It keeps going. NCIS, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and much more. Of course, you know him as having directed multiple episodes of films in Star Trek universe and having played Commander Will Riker, plus his clone. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jonathan Frakes.
My resume, huh, Dana?
I looked up your IMDb.
Have you ever seen any of those shows?
Most of them. I grew up on that. No. I remember your episode of Dukes of Hazzard because I grew up on that. I'm always about that.
Catchphrase from Dukes of Hazzard.
Well, there wasn't really a catchphrase. It was just riding across the car. A lot of yeehaw.
Yeah, you can see it, obviously. Like Jamie Lee Hall, who was a cousin of Boss Hall. Okay. Who was engaged to Daisy Duke. Oh. And there was a scandal in whatever that town is called. Hazard. And you know what they said? People leaned out of the windows and they screamed what?
Remind me.
Holmes married the Duke! Holmes married the Duke! It's a test, man.
You're going to troll me as much as I'm going to troll you.
You got to tell the truth.
All right, so Jonathan, is this your first time in Huntsville? Have you been here before?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right, so what?
People of Huntsville have been so kind and smart and funny. Present companies. I'm well informed. I'm always married. But I was warned by my teammates, if you will, Brent and Gates and Q, Delancey. Highly recommend you all, and I can see why.
What's that?
Did the lighting get any worse?
This is a very old building. It's called the Von Braun.
We made really well this time. I thought we had a no taping clause. Big no taping clause.
I just work here. Actually, I just volunteer here.
Work here?
I just volunteer here.
They don't pay you for this?
No, I'm just happy to hang out with you.
Is that a wig? Is that all your hair?
No, in fact, let me tell you a story. My day job.
Is it going to be embarrassing that I step in it?
No, maybe it'll embarrass you. I see how it's going to be up here, Tony. No, maybe it'll embarrass you. When I was very little, I remember one of the first shows I watched was Next Generation, and I thought that was the coolest thing. I watched you guys even before I watched the whole show, and I was like, I want to do that. And I was a slacker in high school. I didn't pay attention, but in college I started paying attention. And now, thanks to you,
You wanted to do what?
What?
You watched the show and you wanted to do what?
I wanted to work in space because I thought that was the coolest thing.
So most of the people here.
Yeah.
So that's why this does so well in this town.
I went to art college, and now I don't think if I hadn't watched your show, I wouldn't work at Marshall Space Flight Center.
I heard that today, and I gotta say, all levity aside, it makes me very proud to be part of a show that has this kind of, and continues to have this kind of influence. And not just our show, the original, but I mean, it's carried right on through the next generation of, next generation of shows. Strange New Worlds has a wonderful Discovery, as much as some people don't care about, Discovery's been incredibly positive for diversity and for visions of 900 years from now. Lower Decks is spectacular. Very special. Also, I'm really excited about Michelle Yeoh's Section 31. What can you tell us about that? I can't tell you anything. Because I have gotten in so much trouble with CBS. I said things that were so wrong, as it turned out. And so, I've been reprimanded like I was a bad child in kindergarten. Things that I have revealed about shows. So I'm trying desperately to be a good boy. It's not easy.
I can't imagine why they give you a hard time.
Well, they didn't like the fact that I, slipped a couple of... Is that Melinda? Hey. It's great. You know her?
I do not.
Very kind woman and a good driver. I gave you a tour of the town.
What was some of the coolest stuff you got to see in town? You saw our big Saturday 5, right?
I saw that. I think the space camp is the coolest. I made a space camp counselor here somewhere. Very impressed. And very impressive. And very expensive.
All right, so Jonathan, why don't we got about 45 minutes together. I'm sure everybody wants to talk with you. So I'd like to warm up the crowd. I want to talk a little bit about something.
There you go.
Not a singer, not a jazz musician. So I want to talk a little bit about something that was really cool recently.
Stay on the course. I see how he's going to be tonight.
You recently did something really cool with Strange New Worlds. You directed a crossover episode with Lower Decks, right?
Yeah.
How challenging was it as a director to straddle the lines between the two mediums, almost like a Roger Rabbit situation?
It was just one week.
Was it? There's a couple of animated clips.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with that shit. No, I was blessed by having Jack Quaid and Tawny, who played Boimler and Merrick on Strange New Worlds. They were invited on the show, and Mike McMahon and Cat Lennon and Bill Wilcox kind of co-wrote the show. It opened as an animated show, and then they obviously went through the portal, and at the end of the show, it was animated again, which I thought was very clever. The biggest difference from doing that show than all the other Star Treks I've been blessed with was that at some point, Tawny, who you may not know, but you will, Tawny's actually writing on the new Strange New Worlds Starfleet Academy. I'm not Strange New Starfleet Academy, the new TV show. She is a Second City improv like Colbert, and Jack's the same way. So they started to, ad-lib, which was verboten on Star Trek for years. I mean, really, really strictly forbidden in a very prohibitive way, in my humble opinion. So at some point, their stuff was so good and it was so useful that we just. So I looked at Kat and Bill, who were on the set with me, to get their approval, because they're the writer and producer of the show. I'm just kind of trying to drive the train. And we had a little confab, a whisper fab. I said, I think it's fabulous. And they said, everybody wins because it looks like we wrote it. And they were thrilled with that. They feel free to do it. And the bonus is with Anson and Ethan and Rebecca, who are all really funny, were loosened up and free to do things that they really not, I don't want to take the show. I seriously don't want to take
I
the
don't
show.
post it. It's just for me.
So I've asked twice. I'm usually really nice about it. So the advantage of having these guys loosen up the actors from next gen, but they're not strange new worlds, created that phenomenon on that whole show, which was just, by the way, nominated for a Hugo Award. You know what a Hugo Award is?
So you got to do something very cool in that episode. You got to direct some live action versions of animated characters. We got a bit of can you play some? Well, we don't have a clip, but I've got something fun. There was a character that was mentioned in that episode, but did not get a live action appearance, and turns out she's here.
Hello, Prep Tracker. So I have had experience with transporter club. Like one of my best friends was a transporter. Like he got transporter club, and I just have to make sure. How do we know you're not Thomas? I just have to make sure.
So, you know, that's a really valid question. I was talking to my friend Maria back here. They think that I'm cosplaying Frakes, which in a weird way is what William T. Riker has with Thomas R. or whatever his good name is. You know who Thomas Riker was? He's separated in some kind of portal incident.
Transporter club. One of my best friends was.
Marina Sergi, who's my wonderful television wife who plays Counselor Troy, who I hope you get to meet someday, was convinced and continues to tell me ad nauseum, I like Thomas Riker. Much better. I said, well, he's cuter.
Sorry.
All right, thank you. Everybody give a big round of applause. That's Tasha Hudson. What a wonderful top awesome. I love it. I've been practicing this.
Not long enough.
Oh, here we go.
First of all, it's too tall to do it.
Oh, is that the trick?
Did you see what you just did?
Yeah.
You did not think you're junk in the back of the chair?
Okay, let's try it.
Plant.
It is a little something. I can't talk to myself. For the right thing to do. All right, guys.
Let's be frank. That's kind of an asshole move, isn't it? You see somebody do that, and then whoever brilliantly compiled those into that YouTube thing, and made it feel like I did it in every show I was ever in, including Take two.
It was always badass. Now, you talked about, I want to pass this to a Q&A here this morning. I got one more thing, and this is a question from my wife that couldn't be here tonight. One of her favorite compilations of you is from an entirely different show.
Oh!
Now, you ask us the questions in this show, so I want to ask you these questions.
Who's the tallest man you ever saw?
Yep.
So we're going to try and use those terms? You know what a legend is so many. Have you noticed how real estate agents become celebrities?
My favorite was, do you love to go a wandering clear blue
Have you
sky?
ever been a wandering with Those brought that show back. We just made 16 new episodes of Beyond Belief back to Strangely, we made them for German television where it's called X Factor Unbeschlossen. Unbelievable. So, none of us spoke German. It's been massive over there in Germany and Austria for some reason, which I'm not quite sure of, but I'm grateful for. And we're trying to get a distributor here, because people love this show. Because of those puns, because of those things at the end of the show.
Have you seen the one where somebody slows it down? It's like the drunk guy asking you questions at the bar.
That's one of Wayne's favorite. The 0.5 speed one. It's brilliant.
It cracks me up every time. But yes, thank you for playing along. If you guys got questions for Jonathan, that mic right there is fine. If you want to line up, I'm sure you guys got it.
Oh, so you're getting off that easy. Turn it over to the audience right now.
This is a community effort, Jonathan.
Fair enough, Daniel.
He's determined to give me a hard time, and I'm kind of okay with it. You know, last year when Delancey was here, he was kind of giving me a hard time, and I was like, you know what? That's on brand for him. I'm okay. What about Brent? Did you have Brent? They were the sweetest. In fact, me and him figured out.
It's not, I really
So nice to me. And Gates came to me and she's like, I'm your
Gates
space
would be
mom.
sweet. She would be sweet, yeah. Brett doesn't do sweet.
Me and him learned that we had family in some of the same town in Texas. And we kind of hit it off. I had a great time with him.
Okay, and what are you going to say about us?
We'll get there later. All right. Hey, tell us your name and where you're from.
My name is Amy, and I'm from Huntsville. I met you earlier, sir.
This is Amy. That's how you, we go back.
You mentioned about when you directed the episode where it had animation and live action, that there was some freedom to ad-lib. When Gates and Brent and John were here last year, they spoke about that and said that I think John said it was a contraction. He wanted to say like, I don't do something.
Oh, no, that's data.
Oh, okay, all right.
Data's not allowed.
And I just wanted to know if you would speak about that for just a minute, to say, did you feel any more freedom, maybe in the later episodes of Picard, or?
Picard was not as strict as Next Gen, but nothing was as free as we had on this Strange New Worlds crossover with Lower Decks. Because, first of all, the writers think that all they're doing is Shakespeare on any show you're doing, even a shit show. And if you take yourself too seriously and you take your work too seriously, it can get you in trouble, especially with people like us. No, I think there's a certain inherent collaboration if people feel. First of all, I'm gonna go back a step. I won't be an asshole about it. I trust you. I think it'll be a test. I feel that my responsibility as an actor, and I believe that for most actors, is to come on the set, first of all, prepare, you know your lines, you show up on time, you have an idea how you want to play the part. But the idea of changing lines before you even rehearse or done a read through the scene is insulting to the writers who have spent probably months and months and months honing that script. And I learned that from, name drop, are you ready? Sir Ben Kingsley. Knows a little bit about acting. I had the privilege of having him. He was the villain in Thunderbirds before I went to movie jail. But that's another story. He said his responsibility is to make the best version of what's written from the scene. And then, if it doesn't work, or if someone has a better idea, or someone has another idea, or an alternative idea, then you do that. So, I'm a big believer in that. I think that's, it honors the writing in a way that it should be honored. It doesn't disrespect anyone in the room. And if then they get a chance to hear a version or the best version of what they've written, if there's something that they want to change, they obviously will. And if there's an actor as clever as Brent or as Delancey or Patrick who say, what about this? What if I, and they generally will say, let's try it. And if it's better, if they're involved as artists, they say, and it is better. Just that's exactly what happened on Strange New Worlds. Tony and Jack, their ad-libs, for instance, if you've seen the show, when he got up on the saddle and yelled Riker at me, he did that completely off the top of his head and stayed in the show because it was much better. It wasn't written. It was one of the great moments in the show that he found and popped and did. So I think there's a place for the creative freedom of improvisation, but it's and not everybody can do it. That's another thing. Not everybody's as smart as the Nancy or Brad or Jack. And then some people think they are. I don't, you know what it's like. Actors have, I don't know if you ever read into it, actors have huge egos. Are selfish, childish, childlike. All of the above. Fortunately, I'm a recovering actor, so I'm all over the problem.
See how you approach that as a director. Do you work with the writers ahead of time, just find out like what areas maybe they have some wiggle room, or if they want to stay strict to it?
I generally have when I direct an episode of TV, you have about as many days as you have to shoot before you start, called prep. And during that prep, the script is in whatever shape it's in. And with anyone, they send a writer up to be with you in whatever town you're shooting in. So I can make suggestions or ask questions, or we can work together. So by the time we get what's called a production draft of the script, which is in white, and then there's pink and blue and gold rod green, those are definitely changes. The first draft is for everybody's in the production to understand what's going to happen in the show, what the sets are going to be like, the locations are going to be like. Then you fine-tune those scenes, combine locations, hopefully take some of the night exteriors away, so you don't have to shoot in the middle of the night, you know, that kind of thing. So you do hone it down so that you have hopefully the best version of the script, or the most shootable version of the script, time-wise, for a day or so before we start, so all the actors then get what we hope is a shootable version of the script. So yes, the short answer is yes. You got me going. I got in my serious mode.
No, I'm interested in that. Let's go to our next question. Tell us your name and where you're from.
Can you hear me okay?
You're good.
All right. Hello, Mr. Frakes. My name is Nicholas Barrera. I'm 23 years old, and one of my biggest ambitions is to pursue a career into radio. But what I really wanted to ask you is, everyone always talks so extensively about your resume, like all the stuff you acted in, all the stuff you directed in. I was wondering if there's like just one thing you can think of on the top of your head that nobody, not even everyone else in this whole room, knows you were ever involved in.
I already met the fish fans. Right? My best credit, my second best credit. My best credit is that I'm married to Jeannie Francis. 38 years. That's an interesting question, because you're looking for me to talk about something that nobody knows about.
Yeah, like, is there like stuff that you know you were involved in that nobody else, not even like the most knowledgeable people would ever know about?
I hope not. That sounded like a loaded question. Didn't it?
What stuff you done porn?
That's what I think. Not happening.
By the way, you do have a voice for radio. That sounds fantastic.
Oh, he leaned into it. You knew he had a voice for radio.
Yeah, that's the thing, because when I was in high school, I used to announce the starting lineup for the varsity boys basketball team for 4 years. So yeah, that's probably what my jumping off point was.
Very cool. You got a voice for it. I got a face for radio.
He is determined to embarrass me. All right, next up.
Self-effacing joke, Daniel. What's that got to do with you?
Fairness the best. My name is Jack. I'm from Wisconsin, but I go to university down here for my doctorate. We discussed some of the meme potential of you, all the clips. But how do you feel about your facial hair being so famous that every television show has to grow the beard before it gets good?
I remember when my facial hair was black.
Tell me about it.
Right? One of my great, maybe this is the answer to the question before. You know what the Urban Dictionary is? In the Urban Dictionary, I'm told, I've never seen it in print, but I've been told, that the definition of Riker's beard is the opposite of jumping the shark. You know what jumping the shark is? Fawns. When the Fawns allegedly jumped the shark, it's when that show took the shit and it was done. Like, they'd gone, it was a bridge too far. It was a shark too far. So in theory, according to the Urban Dictionary, season 1 of Star Trek, which was not our finest hour, after which there was a writer's strike, after which we were gathered with the late great Gene Roddenberry, Rick Berman, and Patrick and Brett Knight. Roddenberry looked at me. I own a beard because I hated to shave, and we were on strike anyway. And he used that long hands. I always do my Roddenberry impersonation like I had 4 adequate hands. He said, "Jonathan, I love the beard. It looks nautical." Sort of just what I was going for, Gene. Long and shaggy, he said, no, and we will work on it, and we'll make it decorative. took me down to the makeup trailer where the king of makeup, like the Michael Westmore, Academy Award winning Michael Westmore, armed Roddenberry and Bourbon and himself with black eyeliner pencils, with which they drew on my face the shape they thought my nautical decorative beard should be. And then shaved off little snippets of it and sent it. But then after a couple of seasons of the beard, Riker's beard, the show got better because the writing got better because we got better. Of course, the beard is responsible for the quality. Wasn't there a movie where you didn't have the beard at the end? I believe that my Mzadi shaved my beard off in a hot tub. Yeah. That was a great day of work. That was a great day of work. Let me tell you about that day. Marina Sturgis, who had proudly just had a boob job, which he announced publicly and said, look how great my boobs look now for the new movie. So she and I were in a hot tub, which was built in, of all places, Captain Janeway's office. Right? Insult to injury. So the hot tub was set up. I was directing the movie, it's Insurrection. And Marina's, in the hot tub with me, afloat. And they brought us Diet Cokes and stuff. And there was a monitor set up so I could see the tape. And they were going to set up the next setup systems to Marina sitting next to me with the girls floating. Go back to your trailer? She said, no, it's nice here, Johnny. Let's just stay in the hot tub. So I'm at work directing a movie with Marina Sturgis and I in a hot tub in which she's pretending to shave my beard off. And we get to hang out while they were doing the lighting stuff. That was a great day of work. Thank you very much. I've been doing well.
Real quick, you talked about something a minute ago I wanted to circle back around to. You're talking about the stories with Gene. I've heard these stories that he originally wanted to follow your character after Kirk in the first season. Is there any truth to that at all?
I don't know. I think that I've always... Riker didn't do quite as well as Kirk did with the alien. And I don't know that he modeled him on Kirk. I think that he had the idea that there would be sort of 3 generations of a man, and there was Picard and Riker and Will. And that didn't go so well for some fans of poor Will. But it was very unclear to me what his intention was. First of all, why did French captain have a British accent? That's okay. But why?
Maybe in the future, accents just mingle? I don't know.
That's what I'm going with. Certainly Marina's accent is mingled. But Beta's always accent.
Maybe in the future, a Frenchman will have my stupid Southern accent. Let's go to the next one. Tell us your name.
Ricky Rogers. I have a question. Both in Star Trek Generation, during the final of the Enterprise D's bridge construction, and then the Star Trek Picard Season 3 with the return of the Enterprise D, how did you feel between those 2 generations of decades of Star Trek?
I didn't get the question.
Are you talking about generations of the Enterprise?
No.
Who didn't catch your flight?
Like the destruction of the USS Enterprise D's bridge in Star Trek Generation.
But
And how,
we drove it into the Earth?
yeah, but and then how you feel when they rebuilt the Enterprise D in Picard Season 3.
I got you. Have you all seen Picard Season 3? All hail Terry Matalas. The writing was astounding. It was a joy to be back with the family. Everything about it. It was really wonderful.
You knocked it out of the park.
And the people who also knocked it out of the park were the production designer, Dave Glass, and his team, Liz Kozlowski, who painstakingly researched the color of the rugs, the texture of the carpet, the texture of the chairs, the angle of the ramp, the horseshoe, all that business. was so painfully, wildly accurate. And I was directing the episodes before, so I saw the construction of it, and it was on a separate soundstage up in Santa Cruz. And as you can imagine, if you all reacted, how we reacted, we were really, really emotionally, well, we had that sort of Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hour thing. We spent 182 episodes and 4 movies on a bridge together. So it was kind of a powerful part of our lives. And I remember when we were called in for the first rehearsal on the D on Picard 3, and they picked us up in a little golf cart, because the makeup trailer stuff was far at any rate. So I got in with LeVar and Marina and me, and I knew what was going on. So I opened the door, and I got in before them, and I looked back, and as they walked up to the bridge, the look on their faces was the same look that Jory, Troy, and I had when we came out of the elevator. Remember the show? We all came out in awe on that bridge. They had it as people. It was a great moment of sort of art imitating life. And I'll never forget the look in their faces and how emotionally attached we didn't probably know. Subconsciously, we certainly knew, but consciously the idea that that bridge had changed our lives, all of us. We've been friends and made friends on that bridge. A lot of stuff happened in that room, if you will. So it had psychic kind of, I don't want to get too woo, but it was a very big deal to us. It was a very big deal to a lot of you. A lot of people had an emotional reaction to that.
About like found family, and I feel like for many of us, Next Generation was that for us. Like clearly, you guys as a cast felt that way, but all of us on the other side of the TV felt that way too, because we were hanging out with you all the time, whether it be as it originally aired or in reruns. So like that too was one of those like, oh, we just got punched into nostalgia.
That's exactly right, and that's because of Terry Metalis. He found a way. By the time that part of the show was there, my wife said when we were watching it, she never watched Star Trek with me, but she loved Picard season 3, and she watched each episode as it came around. And she said all these entrances were earned because by the time Troy came in and when Geordi came in, those characters helped solve the puzzle of the season, which was like a big long movie. And we had to bring down what was her name, that great Amanda Plummer's character? What was that character's name? We had to take her down. There was a lot of stuff. Patrick had to get kicked off the bridge, we killed Shaw. I mean, there was a lot of it. But each character who came in brought something new to the story instead of having what Patrick was dreading, which was going to be a reunion, a playful reunion. It ended up having purpose and objectives. And it was, I was really proud of the part.
I feel like there's a lot of shows that like have that reboot and they try too hard to be what they were. But Picard was trying hard to be a new thing from the glimpses of the old thing. And that's why I feel like season 3 in particular worked out so well.
I completely agree with you. And a lot of that credit I hate to overstate the obvious. I'm sure you talked about it last year. Had the show aired when they were here last year?
The finale had aired 2 days before we did this.
Oh, so everybody was fresh. What Terry did with us, including with Patrick, was he pitched individually, here's what I'm thinking about for your character. And is there anything you'd like your character to do? And so LeVar said, I want to work out this thing with Geordi not doing well with women, so he has a beautiful family, including his own daughter was on the show, and Ashley was on the show. And Gatesy said Crusher should be an action hero. He put that into the show. And he was really thoughtful. And he cared in a way that a lot of writers, I don't want to say don't, but they didn't get it. He really got Next Gen. He was a fan who happened to be a talented writer, and we were all the beneficiaries.
Now, what did you want for Riker when you were asked that question?
I was fine, because what he pitched to me was that because Riker had been in season 1, and my son had died on this planet that we had gone to, hopefully save his life. The arc was that it had a deleterious effect on the marriage of Riker and Troy, which I gather it does. If a family loses a child, it's hard on the parent. It's psychologically, historically, that's a real thing. So that was built in to the kind of the fabric of the show at that point. So that's what he emphasized. Also, Marina was in England and didn't really want to come back for the whole season, so that worked in terms of scheduling. I also love the fact that he was able to stand up to and throw Picard off the bridge. Who didn't want to do that for 35 years?
That was a great question. That got us going. Yeah. All right. Tell us your name, where you're from.
Scott, I'm here from Huntsville. Is it merely a coincidence that an episode you directed way back in the TNT days turned out to be the subject for the whole finale of Discovery, the season finale?
I think it's a coincidence. I think you're talking about The Chase, which was the premise of the beginning of Discovery this season. It was just a coincidence that I directed, but it wasn't a coincidence that Michelle Paradise and Kurtzman loved that story. So it had nothing to do with me. I think it had a lot to do with, I believe it was Brandon Braga and Joe Manosky wrote that episode. It kicked them off. Season 5 of Discovery, for people who have left it because it was too whatever, season 5 is sort of like Indiana Jones again. So there's a lot to be said for it. I directed it first after the finale.
Right, I saw that.
Just to plug that.
It's a great subject, though. I think,
Yeah, I think that's what they saw.
you can at least take credit for it.
That's what I should do, yes. It was my idea. It was the director of The Chase that inspired the entire 5th season of the show.
Speaking of Discovery, real quick, I gotta give a shout out to Sneaker. She is from my hometown of Russellville, Alabama. Small town.
Isn't she spectacular?
Yes. You have no idea how much we're thrilled that somebody from our hometown is Catherine Starship. It's amazing.
She's a proud Alabamian. And she's a proud woman and a talented woman. Sonequa Martin Green, who's #1 on Discovery, for those of you who don't watch, is not only a spectacular actor, but more importantly, that she's a great leader. She's so kind and she's so spiritual in a non-cloying way. She's she's a wonderful mother, she's a wonderful wife, and she's a great leader. And the #1 on the call sheet often sets the tone of the entire experience. And the tone on that show was set by her, and it was a joy with her.
So proud.
Must be the hometown.
It's the Alabama.
It's the Alabama.
Now remember that. #1 says the tone. All right, let's go next.
Hey, I'm Justin Lynch. I'm from Huntsville. All right, I'm going to bring it to Ripley's Believe It or Not. Was there a...
Beyond belief, fact, or fiction is probably what you want to
Look
talk
at
about.
that.
I don't know much about scripts. I don't know much about Beyond Belief, but I really don't know anything about it.
Yeah. Was there one that ended up being true that you thought was absolutely bullcrap?
Let me give you the truth, the fact about Beyond Belief, fact, or fiction. I never saw the stories, and more importantly, Al Schwartz, who was the director, and Barry Allen, who was the writer of those shows, they wisely never told me which were fact and which were fiction, so that in my, what are they called, wraparounds, or whatever I did on that show, my interpretation or my pattern wouldn't sway towards the audience what was true. So they never told me which was fact and which was fiction. I didn't know until we did the outs, as they call it at the end, and say, sorry, I just made this one up. Not this time. Or, this was true. Yeah, remember that last thing? I didn't know until then.
Okay. Nice. Thank you.
Good question. Look who it is, Wild Bill Riker.
Very Wild Bill Riker. How do you rate the beard?
Excellent beard. Okay. Wait, is that all your hair? You know what, if I had that hair, I'd still be acting.
It's like looking in a mirror.
The man's a good director. You got that shot.
It's like looking in a mirror. You look fantastic.
Are you a captain?
No, I've got the right...
Other side. Commander, right?
Yeah, of course.
Embarrassingly, Riker was a commander for 35 years. On a #1, right? What was up with that? I did a good job. turned down some jobs. That's because I wanted to stay on TV.
All right, Thomas Riker.
Thomas Riker, first of all, wore gold.
That's what I'm wearing tomorrow. So, see you then. Number one, Kyle from Birmingham, Alabama. Very happy to be here. So we've talked about how prolific you are as a director. Just very quick question for you out of TNG or any other Trek, and also the Orville. Which is your favorite episode out of any of those series that you've directed? What the most fun to work on, or your favorite?
Personal favorite. I have a soft spot for The Offspring because it was my first. And I had spent almost 3 years shadowing all the other directors in the show, and the editors who also wanted to direct were kind enough to share their time. I spent like 300 hours with them. And then Bourbon opened up the visual effects meetings and the pre-production meetings. So by the time I finally was given an episode, I actually felt prepared. I knew a little bit about blocking and I learned a lot about the camera. So I knew all the actors, obviously we were in our third season of our show. And because on television, as you all know from watching it, we used to do 26 episodes a year. And you know they're not all progress, because there are real stinkers in there. When I got my slot, The Offspring, which was the episode in which Data built a daughter, which was a wonderful script, wonderfully acted, etc. Brilliantly directed. Or over-directed by an over-prepared director. But it was also Renee Echeverrien's spec script. He's the guy who went on to become executive producer on Deep Space Nine, and then Castle, and then CSI. A lot of those guys just, Mike Pillar, who was the producer, director, did something that nobody does anymore, which is take scripts for writers that are just submitted. No agents, no nothing. He has people read them. Renee's was The Offspring, that was produced. So it was his first produced script, it was my first script to direct, and both of us went on to continue to work. Had it been a shitty script, no matter how wonderfully or not it may have been directed, I may not have been able to do it. So you're really, again, if it's not on the page, it's not on the stage, you got to honor the script, you got to hone it down during prep to make the best version of it. So that one is very near and dear to me, as you can imagine.
Good question. All right, guys, we got about 5 or 10 minutes, so we're going to kind of play lightning round, so we'll try to get through as many of you as we can.
Mr. Frakes, pleasure to meet you. My name actually is Thomas. So, of course, your clone is a little bit more my favorite, but I will tell you that when I first learned that your character's middle name was Thomas, that was like a wonderful day for me. So, thank God it wasn't Tiberius.
No, Tiberius was taken.
Exactly. I'm not sure who had it.
See, I thought it was Thelonious. I thought it was going to be William Thelonious Riker. I was a monk fan. But nobody, Roddenberry didn't respond to that. He said it's William Thomas.
I can see that. So on your, regarding your directing, which is just as fantastic as your acting, and of course you mentioned before that it's sometimes difficult or challenging to work with actors that are exceptional, such as yourself, LeVar Burton, Sir Patrick, maybe not so much Brent. But as far as working with people that are
Challenging to work with them.
not well challenging, but as far as like potentially intimidating. My favorite episode is the drum roll.
Oh,
With Admiral Morris.
Gene Simmons.
Gene Simmons, wonderfully powerful and evocative actor.
You know how she has an Oscar for Hamlet,
Yes.
so she did with Laurence Olivier. She was a massive fan of Star Trek: The Next Generation and was a neighbor of Gene Roddenberry's and begged to be on the show.
I did not realize that. That's amazing.
It was such a gift to have her, but I digress.
So I'll listen to you speak all day long. When you were directing, when you were having to direct scenes between her and Sir Patrick, for example, what was going through your mind about having just that much talent on the stage and how to guide them and what you would be able to give to them to help enhance their performance?
That's a really good question. I'll tell you about another version of that, because generally what you do is sit back and enjoy it, make sure that you remember to turn the camera on. And make sure you get your close-up. I was sitting under the camera in First Contact when I was watching Alfred Woodard, who I think is a genius, who happens to be my godfather. And Patrick Stewart doing the scene about the ships. you broke your little ships, the Moby Dick season called. In the, I guess I was in the observation lounge, whatever part of the set I was in. The two of them, it was like watching two heavyweights, and they were both equally spectacular, equally into it, and the writing was Ron Moore and Brandon Rocket. It was a bulletproof script, that was a bulletproof scene. So I literally sat with my, cross-legged under the camera and watched the coverage from one side, and then I did the same from the other side, watched it, and I thought, this is the best job in the world. It's like watching somebody brilliant paint, or watching Thelonious Monk, or watching Oscar Peterson. It was like that with those two, and they loved it. I loved it. The operators, the people who are the best job of the operators, who are sort of intimately involved, because they sort of see it first, if you know what I mean. So an operator who actually still uses the lens, monitor, and I digress. But that feeling with Gene Simmons and Patrick was very similar to the feeling. By that point, I was more comfortable by the time we had the first contact, so I had a real emotional, and it's really pride. Like how well cast it was, how well written it was, and just stay out of it and enjoy it.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you. Question? I was going to wear the same outfit. Wait, what is your character? I don't recognize that.
Awesome.
Oh!
Okay, so I know that most people probably don't know you from Gargoyles.
Some do.
That personally was one of my favorite shows growing up. So I'm curious for you, what was your favorite episode of that show?
That asked me to ask you about Gargoyles. I'm glad I got it.
How do I tell you this? I never saw Gargoyles. But I heard it was great. And it was fun to do because it was a show, which we don't do anymore, is that when we did an episode, we were all called in together. So it was Marina and Keith, what about that voice? He was spectacular. Ed Grant, Will, I mean, yeah, they were wonderful actors, but we were all together, so we were eating bagels and sitting in a room. That doesn't happen anymore. You go in and you do your part of the show. So it was like a radio play. So I wasn't much of an animation guy. I didn't know anything about it, but I do hear that that show was probably too smart for the slot it was in. And I do know that Xanatos was one of the best written villains I've ever been involved in. See. So I'll give you that much, but I didn't watch the show.
That's good, though. That was so many people asking about that. All right, Jonathan, I need you to be nice.
Last question.
This lady is my wife. This is
You poor thing.
Okay, I just have one quick question.
Shoot.
What is your favorite cheese and why?
This is an inside joke, I'll tell you.
I like that question. Roquefort? Yeah. Because of the bite. I do like a brie when it's down to room temperature. And I've been known to hack off, instead of scraping Parmesan, a big hunk of Parmesan, and just eat it. What's your favorite cheese? Daniel?
Whatever she says, my favorite is. Whatever she says, my favorite is. But when I go to Subway, I get pepper jack, I guess.
I wasn't even asking you, I was asking her.
You said Andy.
No, I said her favorite.
Cheryl.
Might be Daniel.
What's your favorite cheese?
My favorite cheese is brie.
Yeah. Room temperature or cold?
Oh, you gotta put it in the oven for a little bit.
Ooh, a little honey?
Yes.
Hard bread, a little French bread, a little baguette. I'm starving now. Really, we're done.